2x2, 7 rows deep.
And rolling up to the start-finish line. It looks like Asher going a little bit off track as the inside.
As they can. Saber making an amazing dive into turn 1.
And electroshocks off. Eggful gets the move.
But MNU trying to take a move.
Big contact from 5 different punches.
Big incident with Snowdog, our leader.
As we head into turn row, it's a big crash. It's a big crash between the two title contenders.
Over halfway through the season, the competition is getting more intense in all the classes. Hello everyone, and welcome to the 4th round of our Simufur GT4 Season 4 Championship at a night-lit Imola track. My name is Denak Kalmari, joined by Jordan Johnson in the commentary booth and Paliku'i Grant in the cameras for a round where everyone will be struggling for visibility.
Yeah, it's a really short-sighted night here at Imola. This is going to be a really eventful round after we saw the halfway point tick over once we passed the round at Imola with quite torrential downpour that shook up quite a bit of things. The standings are going to reflect that as well because it has opened up several massive holes for our overall championship.
It has absolutely shaken up our standings quite a lot here as we're going to be transitioning into our full course yellow test during our practice session here, and we're going to be having another review of those points at the end of our practice session here. But for now, we're just getting everyone ready here on the server, getting them connected, everyone getting a feeling for our first night race of the track here, and then we're going to be having one more night race at the final round in Zolder. So with how dark it's going to be on the track, your visibility is going to be indeed a problem as well. You can already see on those from the onboard of Damon Wareham that we're following on at the moment here, that following close behind somebody else here, it's going to be might have an issue where they're going to be blinded by the cars behind you, and there might be actually some sneaky moves here done by the flashing cars right behind us. We do see, and it's going to be a car of Kiando, if I'm correct, right ahead of them. So yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting battle here at our first night race of the season here, and it's going to be anybody's game to see who's going to be coming out on top.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be a night of the bold and the brave, those that are willing to dare to push their car that extra tenth to the limit when they aren't as comfortable and able to see the curbs, the edge of the tracks. Imola, one of those classic tracks where it's lined by grass. You don't have the runoff to save you if you make a mistake. If you drop a wheel, you're probably either finding a wall or you're going to be taking a couple buckets out of the gravel trap along with you as you scoop your car out. So it's going to be really interesting to see who's able to be the most bold and who is the most brave to throw the car over the curbs, make sure that they settle the car over the bumps and bounces, and take home a good position by the end of this.
The Brave and the Bold, you see, I think that's a TV show that we might know. But yeah, now we're going to be following along with Aussie Tickers here, currently sitting in 5th in our standings here in the practice session here, and with the night race of our season here, it's going to be colder temperatures aside from what our drivers usually expect. It's also going to be providing a bigger challenge for our drivers, especially at the start of the race here, with these GT4 cars having no tire warmers at all here. So it's going to be taking even more for them to get their tires warmed. It's going to be important not only for the race, but also for the qualifying, because we're going to be having our 20-minute split qualifying again here. And with a fairly lengthy track here in Imola, you're probably going to be only getting like 1 or 2 fast laps in the end before your tires are going to be in their optimal window.
Absolutely, and all of the corners typically are fast chicanes. You have Variante Tamburello starting the lap It's a quick left-right, then a maybe longer left. To Variante Villeneuve, that's going to be a left-right quick short shoot. Aqua Minerale stresses the tires a little bit on the left-hand side, but it kind of creates a little small chicane at the bottom of the hill, and then Variante Alta at the top of the hill, another quick right-left chicane. So it doesn't stress the tires. It doesn't put a lot of load into the tires because you're getting the car hard on the brakes, quickly tipping it to one side and then the other. So it will be a challenge for our drivers to be able to get their tires up into the correct operating window and to really push it out. I wouldn't even be surprised if some of our drivers struggle to even get one good lap in, let alone two.
Yeah, there's going to be also a lot of issues with track limits as well. We know a lot of drivers are going to be pushing hard into all the chicanes, especially into Aqua Minerale, where going a little bit too wide onto those rumble strips on the outside is going to be invalidating your entire lap here. And with both our AM and Silver and our Pro and Gold classes only getting 10 minutes on the track to do a qualifying lap here. If you mess up your lap, you're going to be sitting almost 2 minutes before you can have another go there. So it's going to be probably drivers driving a little bit under the limit than they normally would be, just so they can get that one banker lap in. And after they got that one banker lap in, then they might start pushing a little bit more here. That's going to be my feeling, at least.
Absolutely, and there is a lot of time to be found in these curbs here. So to think that we'll find that perfect lap in the 10-minute, I don't think we're gonna find it. Our drivers will definitely be pushing for it, but it is so hard to absolutely perfect it, as you see Luis Alfonso bouncing over the inside curb at turn 2 there at the start of Variante Tamburello. A very, very tricky section to get right, but there's about 0.2 of a second just finding the perfect line there. When you're 1 meter to the left or 1 meter to the right, you can lose a ton of time relative to getting it absolutely perfect. And there's a lot of corners like that. We mentioned Aqua Minerale, a very high commitment corner. Variante Alta, which you bounce over the curbs as well quite a bit in tons of time, and you're going to be pushing the car to the utmost limit of, well, track limits, to the limit of what the suspension can handle, and as well as just the limits of your car's own performance and maximizing that as much as possible as we roll into Variante Alta and straight for Chris Gator. I assume getting out of the way of Luis Alfonso as we wrap up practice here in about 2 minutes. I assume that lap was not going to be too good for them. Just making way for the 57.
Yeah, normally if you want to make way for a faster car behind you, will maybe slow down a little bit, go to the side of the track here, and not have to like completely throw yourselves off into the gravel trap as we saw Chris Gator do there. But hopefully they're going to be okay. We're not going to be watching on board with Tyler Van Beek and Damon Wareham, I believe, just ahead of him as well, who are now setting the fastest lap of a 1:50.195, which is quite competitive here. I do remember there were a previous round that we did our GT4 championship in here, which if I'm correct, the whole time there was a 1:49 or 48, if I'm correct. So we're going to be very excited to see how that's going to be coming up around here. But we're with about a minute left on the lap to go here. We can probably have a review of our points standings for our competition, because our previous Imola round indeed shook our standings quite a lot here. So we can have Plasma take it away on that.
Yeah, so after a startling round at Misano, that saw quite a varied varied turnout. Thank you. And we saw a big shakeup in the standings. Luis Alfonso jumping all the way up to P1 after taking that win. So their first win of the season pushes them to the top of the standings. Tyler Van Beek and Daniel Taberner both dropping down a position respectively due to that Misano round. We're going to be looking for them to be making a charge. And we already saw Tyler Van Beek pushing for the top end times and fighting Damon Wareham for that P1 position in the practice. Be really interesting to see how that battle shakes out as we roll through. Or as Volpez, the overperforming silver, the super silver, as you might say, off the back of 2 top 5 overall and 2 silver wins, is going to be pushing themselves up into P4 in the standings overall, and a very, very strong round from them. Louis Armstrong is sitting in P5. I do not believe that they are in this round, so we will see them possibly dropping down the standings a little bit more as Luke Packer puts that pressure on above them. And finishing off the podium spots, Philip Beckevold will be sitting in P7. That Maserati, who has had a very dramatic season so far, is going to be pushing it forward from P7. Simone Bellon, who really walked away with the round at Misano, as well as really just kind of proved their authority on the Italian tracks. Well, they've stepped all the way up to P8, and they'll be followed by Parker Wilson and Amigo Lopez. Blade Wolf Kagakiyo and Electroshocks, they'll be filling out that silver podium in 11th and 12th overall. They're going to be under pressure as well from Robbie Kelly in P13. Sauce Dragon and Jesper Swingley in those Mercedes and Porsches respectively are going to be filling out your top 15, as well as Charter and Free Fireblood in 16th and 17th. Bossy Tigris is going to be chasing down some more gold positions, but they are hotly contested by Nicholas Zahn and Chris Gator. Fesvox, who has had a quite tumultuous season, I must say, sits down at P21. They're going to be looking for a good recovery, as they are already putting on some impressive times in the practice session. So watch for them to make a big jump up these standings. With Koen van Hova and Race Dragon Ragnar, they're going to be filling out your P22, P23, as well as Alexander Benavoda, Jax Wilson, Quick to Freeze, Juan Manuel Verone, and Adam Norlim, as well as Wolf and Foxo, filing out the rest of our top 30 here. So, as we progress through, there's a couple of our class standings as well. Tyler Van Beek is going to be leading those gold standings. Parker Olsen is going to be sitting in P2, as well as Daniel Taberner. Same as we saw in the overall, but the points championship is a lot tighter now. They aren't spread out by the overall positions. So our top 3 all looking at about 1 race distance. Silver Electroshocks will be leading away with Bladewell Kagakiyo and Orez Volpez sitting in their various positions in the top 3. Be interesting to see how each of our silver drivers go out. Again, one race point is basically separating each of our drivers, as well as the AM standings is going to be about 1 race away. Free Fireblood leading those standings, followed by Wolf and Foxdale and Dan Maurer.
Yes, with a pretty efficient and a very exciting set of standings here. We're going to be moving on right away into our qualifying with the AM and Silver drivers currently live on the track here. We're going to be watching with Blade Wolf Kagakiyo, the first car out on the track here, heading up. I believe that's going to be the back part. I think it's going to be heading over to the Aqua Minerale section. Yes, indeed, there's just going to be swinging right around there, heading over to the Variante Other here. So with only the outlap here, they only have about 8 minutes left of their qualifying time here. So it's going to be quite limited opportunities they're going to have to get their laps on the board there.
Yeah, very, very limited time. It takes about 2 minutes just to get out and around this lap. Lap time sitting at about the 1 minute 50 range once we settle on into qualifying. So it'll be a very tight squeeze. Looking pretty similar situation to Bathurst, but about as different of a track as we can get from Bathurst. Possibly, again, maybe 1 lap. We talked about it before as we head onto the first lap. Blade Wolf Kagakiyo will be taking us through this first lap, the 142 Aston Martin, coming across the line as we roll on board for our first lap of this qualifying session. So heading on full chat into turn 1, we're going to be hard on the brakes, about 200 meters. A quick little left-right flick over the curbs. A little bit conservative from Blade Wolf Kagakiyo and through the left-hander of turn 4. And tipping the car, braking about early on the curb on turn 5, quick over the inside curb, over the second inside curb, and all of that exit curb as you head over towards Tosa. Turn 7, hard on the brakes about the end of that service road, very deep, and tipping the car in to the entry of that corner. Really open up the car, get all over that exit curb with an early application of throttle, and through turn 8, right-hand kink. Not really much as you brake right at that last board at the 50. Hard over the inside curb and let the car drag itself all the ways out through Piratella early on throttle, because that run takes you all the ways down to Aqua Minerale, braking about 50 meters out, all of the inside curb, keep the car straight, drag it out to the outside curb, and quick over the apex early on throttle, and use all of that exit curb. Careful to slow down or the off track on the outside of that track there. Anti-cut curb's also very dangerous. Then setting up out halfway in between the 100 and the 50, braking hard all the ways over the inside curb, throw it back over the left, all the ways over the outside, careful the anti-cuts, and get the car on power and out with the best speed possible. That sets you up for a good run all the ways down to turn 16, the right-hand kink that unsettles the car for the braking zone of 17. Hard on the brakes, about 100 meters out, cars complaining the whole way in over the entry curb, lots of understeer the whole way in, set the car up for 18, a quick little dab of brakes early on throttle all the ways over the exit curb, and that's going to set you up for the final run through to turn 19, and then the final run Variante Bassa, which is going to take us to our first lap time from Blade Wolf, and we'll cross the line as a 1:52.055. All of our drivers quickly in pursuit to try to chase down that pole position.
You could already see there that with their outlap and their tires not being quite up to the open window there, they struggled a lot with those corners, especially into those Rivazzas, into Aqua Minerale. They were just screaming for any more. They're just understeering wide into the outside of the track limits. Yeah, so good on them for being able to get a lap time on here. But with about 5 minutes left to go here, they're going to have to definitely have another go there to improve on their lap times.
Absolutely. I mean, we see the times are already dropping very, very quickly, whereas Volpez has that 151.6. Our Super Silver of the session is really putting on a good show, and they're already on a big improvement. We know that those tires are going to turn on and absolutely start flying, as Elias Flynn, our AM driver, who has also been overperforming quite a bit, setting the fastest lap time of the session by only 13 thousandths of a second. So we could be seeing the lower classmen battle really heat up. It's going to be an interclass battle between Elias Flynn and Orez Volpez, who have both been performing extremely well in their respective classes. So it'd be very interesting to see how they're able to perform, as Orez Volpez is on quite a large improvement so far on the run out of Aqua Minerale. This is where a lot of laps go to suffer. Variante Alta, a lot of inside curb, a lot of exit curb as well. Good run out for Orez Volpez, maybe missing a little bit on the inside curb there, but I do think this will be a good improvement from the 406.
I'm actually rather surprised that Orez Volpez is holding a purple sector in Sector 2 and Sector 3 especially, with Sector 3 being mostly the Variante Alta, the run up into the Rivazza and the main straight there. So quite impressive. They are just dragging that Ginetta G55 to places where it has no right being here, especially considering their results in Bathurst as well, where they had a similar time, where despite the top speed disadvantage that the Ginetta has here, the Auras is definitely dragging it into a very high position. We also saw that similar situation in Misano with Simone Bellon, who I don't believe is going to be competing with us this weekend here. So yeah, despite the top speed issues here, I think the Ginetta seem to be very well over all those curves in all the chicanes here.
Absolutely, and of course it's a very light car, so it doesn't need to slow down as much as the others in the very low speed. The tires are very happy, but we have also a new pole sitter sitting at Blade Wolf Kagakiyo, who has set a 151.1, so those times are starting to fall down. The tires are really starting to kick in, and Blade Wolf actually setting the fastest Sector 1 and 3, so really only suffering in Sector 2. That's going to be really the back part of the track, sitting about Variante Villeneuve, all the ways down to about Aqua Minerale, and then driving the car through. So those really low speed, awkward changes of direction. Aston seeming to maybe struggle just a little bit, as George Shirami as well as taking that AM class pole position. I just noticed them pipping up there, and they're only sitting about 3/10 of drift from Blade Wolf Kagakiyo in the other Aston Martin respectively. So really the last 3 minutes of this qualifying session starting to heat up as our drivers are getting those tires just a little bit closer to their window and a little bit higher performance.
We're also seeing quite a lot of improvement from our AM drivers down on the lower half of the standings. So we're seeing a 8, 9, 10 improvement from both Alfred Shaw and Dan Moore here at the back of the grid. We're going to be now following on board with Dan Moore here, going down that long straight towards, I think that's going to be the Variante Alta chicane right there. Yeah, going over those big curbs here. Just careful to not go too wide on the rumble strips exit there, yeah. Nice and smooth from the Garage 42 driver out there. That's going to be that final launch down into the two Rivazza corners here. Rivazza 1 and Rivazza 2 here. It's going to be down to just getting the exit right on that turn 18 Rivazza 2 here. We're going to be watching them very closely here. Tip the car in nice and smooth on the curb. They're not too far up on the outside. They're looking very tidy there. And again, another sharp left turn down onto the exit and just unleashing all of that power from the 260 Aston Martin here. Got to be looking for a very good improvement. I've got to be quite a few positions up here if I'm going to be correct. Going to be going right across the finish line now. It's going to be an improvement, but it's not going to be an improvement in the standings. They're still going to be holding on to a P10 overall, and that's going to be, I believe, P7 in the AM standings here. So quite a big difference here, but still plenty of time to improve.
Yeah, improvements are improvements, and of course we talked about the tires really taking their time to get up to temperature. I do think Mauro will be able to get a second lap in, but everyone that crosses the line from now on will be starting their final lap 1 minute 30 seconds, as we're sitting about a 1 minute 50 lap time. So the time is here and the time is now. It's going to be a matter of who can put the lap time in once that pressure starts mounting, because you are now on your final lap as we follow along here with Fry Fairblood. Frey Fireblood. Oh goodness, it's a tough day today already. Running into the Villeneuve chicane here. Quite a bit of inside curve there. You actually saw a little bit of a slide coming from that 26. So Aston Martin maybe not as comfortable over the curbs as we tip into Tosa. Blue of Kagekyo, who's made quite an improvement in the first and second sector, now heads down to the Ravazza corners after getting a good exit out of Variante Alta through turn 16. Hard on the brakes, set the car up for 17. Little bit of understeer, but it looked like good compliance from the Aston Martin all the way to the edge of the curb. No break on the entry of Ravazza 2 and a good run out for the 142. Will it be enough to defend their pole position? They're currently looking at a small improvement, and that improvement will come across the line here, but there's a lot of improvements behind as Blade Wolf sets the final marker of 151.130, but Orez Volpez behind is looking to chase that down. They have crossed the line with a 151.215, and behind them, George Shuarmi is also looking at another improvement in number 10 Aston Martin, but it looked like it was maybe a little bit of a skittish response out of that Ravazza 2 as they make that final run down to the start-finish line. I don't foresee that taking pole position. No, it does not. It is an improvement. Elias Flynn with another very big improvement. That Camaro, known for its straight line, is just hauling down the straight. Is it going to be able to close the gap? It is a very large improvement for the 77 driver, but I don't think it's going to be enough, and it is not, but it is enough for a class pole position for the 77, but Blade Wolf Kagekyo, I think, respective of anyone else on my timing screen, I think everyone else is on invalid laps, so that will officially be the silver pole position for Blade Wolf Kagekyo in that 142.
Well done from the Lycan Racing number 142 driver there to get that silver pole there. I think that's going to be their second pole of the season here, if I'm correct. Now we're going to be crowding over into our Pro and Gold Corner. This is going to be the fast cars. We already see Damon Wareham in that 76.5, McLaren 570 as you're heading down on their outlap here. And you can see also right behind that's going to be the car Fetzbox, that GT4 Rexy livery right behind them chasing on them. So quite surprising to see Fetzbox that close behind the fellow driver here, because I feel like if they're that close, they might just stumble over each other. Both slow each other down there trying to get their fast laps here, unless he's trying to get a tow.
Say, don't forget that Porsche has really struggled all season in straight line speed. And you know what the straight line speed demon has been? It's been that McLaren all season. So there's no chance that Fez is going to catch this McLaren in the straights. And Damon has been one of our resident GT4 warriors, if not the GT4 warrior on the Simufur grid. They're extremely strong in that McLaren, and so I think Fezfox may be trying to just get a little bit of a benefit. 30 air does not really exist in these cars, but they sure do punch a big hole in the air, and there's plenty of time to be gained by sitting right in the draft of that car in front. But taking us through for another onboard now for one of the fastest onboards that you're going to see, it's going to be Damon Worm in the 765 as we head on full chat into Tamburello. Turn 1, not really a corner in any car, setting up for Tamburello, hard on the brakes, 200 meters, all over the inside curb. Just a little clip of those anti-cuts, all of the inside curb again, and one more time, a third cut using those anti-cuts just a little bit through the turn 4 complex, setting the car up for Variante Villeneuve as you brake hard about 50 meters, all in the anti-cuts again. Find your racing line right in between the two sausages and use all that exit curb. Get the car fired out, 50-meter braking for Tosa. Again, very deep into the corner. Get the nose tipped in early on throttle to drag it all the ways over that exit curbing, using all the space that you can. And once again, turn A, not a corner, and really anything that fires through here. Hard on the brakes for Piratella, 50 meters, all of the inside curb, early on the throttle, drag the car all the ways out to the exit curb, careful of the track limits on the outside there. Then Aqua Minerale, the hardest corner of the circuit, hard on the brakes, all over the exit curb, early in, early throttle, careful of his off tracks, good run out of the corner from Damon Worm, and that's going to set them up for a good straight line braking for Variante Alta, 14-15, hard on the brakes, taking a lot of inside curb, and you can see how much inside curb you can take. 1, 2, set the car up with an early throttle to drive the car out, set it up for that run down to turn 16 at Ravazza. That's going to unsettle the car. Make sure you're all the way to the left-hand side of the track here. You can straight line that braking hard in for 1, early turn and set the car up for 17, all of the exit curb. Set the car up once again for 18 just to bleed off the throttle early on to drive it all the way out. Want to use all that exit curb to get the best run possible and keep this line as tight as possible to the right-hand side. Not too tight because there is an off track on the inside there, but really set the car up for the best run you can. And our statement lap time will be a 150.44 from Damon Worm in the 765. He was going to be quickly pursued by Luke Packer, only 35 thousandths of a second. So lap 1 goes in. Luis Alfonso will be sneaking in the next best lap time with a 150.385, and I'm looking at 1/10 separating the top 4 cars on our first flying lap. So we are in for a treat in this qualifying session.
You could immediately see from that on performance just how much in control Damon Ware was of that McLaren 570S here. No hint of understeer anywhere, a tiny bit of oversteer into that Tosa hairpin there, but otherwise completely in control there. And same for Tyler Van Beek, for Luke Packer, for Luis Alfonso here, who are all within a tenth of each other here. So immediately all of our GOAT and Pro drivers are competing for that very contentious pole position here. We're going to be watching again even more improvements coming in from Luke Packer, 4 tenths up, 3 tenths up from Damon Wareham, 2 tenths up from Tyler Van Beek here. So it's going to be anybody's guess at this point who's going to be sitting on pole. It's going to be an absolutely stonking qualifying. We're going to be watching Luke Packer now going up into that tricky aqua mineralic corner here. Dab on the brakes here, hard on the inside there, a little bit close to the apex. That's going to be off track here. That's going to be an invalid lap for Luke Packer, unfortunately. But that's what you have to do to get those optimal lap times here. He just pushed a little bit too much here. We're now going to be watching over on Tyler Van Beek, who got a bit of a better run here, going up on the aqua mineralic corner here. Now unleashing the power of that 570S, going up into the turn 14, turn 15 variant out the corners here. Careful on those big sausage curbs here. The car doesn't usually like that big bounce on the sausages, but car is still in control here. And I think that was actually too deep on that chicane as well, because they also have an invalid lap time here. So all of our pro drivers absolutely pushing to the limit to get those improvements.
Yeah, we talked about it. It's a traditional track where the grass really sets the track limits, but there still is some anti-cut inside of those chicanes. You can't take too much on the inside. Damon Warham will be taking that provisional pole position again, but I don't think this is going to stand. We've seen those drivers really push. We know everyone is sitting at about within the 10th and a half for our top 5 positions, because we did see Daniel Taberner actually sneak in the fastest lap while we were going in. So we have a 5-car battle here for this provisional pole position here. No improvements on this time by, so Damon will hold the provisional for now, but I do see a lot of improvements within that top 5, and I think these drivers are going to be pushing all the way down to that final lap. A big improvement coming in from the 83 here, tipping the car in through Ravazza. Very well put together. That car looks extremely compliant through the Ravazza section, and it's going to be a battle of the power on the exit, and a big slide on the exit of Ravazza, maybe taking a little bit of gravel as well. Is it going to be enough from Daniel Taberner? I don't think so. I do see their time dropping quite dramatically, so that is going to be another lap that they need to send this car onto and see if they're able to sneak something in. But a dramatic moment as now Nico Lopez is looking on a big improvement as well to run this car up, and it looks like they're now trying to put their ballot in for a possible chance at this pole position.
That last corner, turn 18 of Ravazza 2, is going to be the absolute vital corner you need to get right there, because as you saw with Dan Taber, not only did they invalidate their own lap here, losing 5 tenths on that final corner there, but they're also going to be unoptimal on their first lap there, because that straight on onto Variante Passa all the way on to Variante Tamburello is going to be very long there. You're going to need every single kilometer per hour as you can get from those cars here. So unfortunate from Daniel for not being able to get a good lap there, but they still have a couple of minutes left to go here to get improvement. Now we're going to be watching now with Nico Lopez going to get deep on those curbs and almost getting an invalid lap time. They're going all the way to the edge of the limits there on the track here, going up through the Variante Alta chicane here. They're going to be chasing down the green Rexy car of the Fast Box's number 86 car here. Going to be again hard braking zone into the Ravazza 1. Again, maybe a dab of the brakes into Ravazza 2 there. Not a tiny dab here from Nico Lopez. They're going to be unleashing the Mercedes power here. Good, nice, clean extra for them at 3 tenths improvement there. I don't think it's going to be quite enough for them to be pole position here, but they're going to be sitting at a good improvement here. We're going to be watching them very closely as they cross the finish line. It's going to be a bit off. It's going to be them up into P4 here. Only 2 tenths off here from the pole time of Damon Wareham here. So with 2 minutes left to go, there's still going to be anybody's guess on who's going to be sitting pole here. We're actually going to be watching another improvement coming in from Damon Wareham. Again, another 1 tenths, 2 tenths, 3 tenths improvement here, going up into that tricky. I think that's going to be the Tosa chicane that they're currently going on here. So yeah, I think it's still going to be Damon Ware who's going to be getting the pole position here. They are indeed the GT4 warrior of our
Looking
race
further
here.
down the grid too, Chris Gator is actually sitting in an improvement that could push them into pole position. The P7 car is looking at about 5 tenths, almost 6 tenths of an improvement to 236, and that BMW really looking like they could actually make some kind of charge here. So as maybe almost even a sleeper pick to come in and put this pole position lap time down, but they're really putting together the lap as we look through the grid here. Everyone from this point on, by the way, will be crossing the lap for their final lap of the session, and Chris Gator is really making the most of their second to last attempt as they run towards that Variante Alta section. They're chasing down, I believe that is possibly Daniel Taverner right in front of them, but ooh, a little bit of a wiggle coming into the Variante Alta chicane that is going to cost them a little bit of time, but Chris Gator now looking like they're going to be putting on a challenger for that P1 position, that provisional pole even. I can see that this 236 maybe recuperating themselves and just making sure that they're set up a little bit better and gets a really good run through the Ravazza section. They could come back on their next lap and really put a challenge down. Damon Warren with a 149.982 will be opening that gap just a little bit more, but I don't think they're safe. I think everyone needs to keep improving in the last 30 seconds here. Everyone's sprinting to the line to get their last attempt in, but clock's running down, but it's so are the lap times. Damon Warren looking for another improvement, but it's a matter of who can get that best lap time in on this final lap.
7 pro and gold drivers here and 7 potential pole sitters here. This is unbelievable. I don't think I've seen a qualifying session unlike anything in my history of commentating these races here. So an incredibly exciting final minute as we're going to be watching now with Damon Wareham here. They're not seem to be improving that much on their qualifying run here. There's going to be their absolute last chance here to try and lay claim on their pole position. They're sitting at a 3/10 gap to the next car of Daniel Taverner here, a fellow McLaren driver here. But it's still going to be anybody's guess to see who's going to be improving there. We're going to be watching them again going down that very fast Piratella corner here, almost on the track limits there. All those rumbles that from the outside now going to be just charging all the way down, carrying as much speed as possible into Aqua here. Again, stab with the brakes here again. Another braking zone into that turn 12 and 13 corners. So again, unleashing all that power, but still no improvement from Damon Wareham here. Damon Wareham, we also see more improvements here coming up from Luke Packer. We see Fez Fox also improving there, but I don't think there's going to be enough improvement for them to be able to challenge Damon Wareham here with only about a minute left to go here. It's really hard to say at this point.
Absolutely, and right behind David Warham, Chris Packer is looking like, or Luke Packer is looking like they are chasing down an improvement, but so is Chris Gator as well. We know that second half of the lap was bad for the 236, so there's a lot of time in it for them as we look at these deltas. Damon Warham looking like a good run through the Ravazza section, Ravazza 1, Ravazza 2, maybe not the best exit as they're really trying to push that lap time all the way down into the lowest section that it can get into, a 149.917, the final benchmark as we cross the line here. And looking back down the grid, Luke Packer looking like they just missed out on an improvement. Chris Gator immediately behind, just missing out on an improvement as well. Though the only one that can challenge it is Fez Fox, who is looking like they have quite an improvement in that Porsche, but I don't think it's an improvement enough to take that P1, but it will be P2, so the 86 comes out of nowhere, and 8 drivers, you could argue, all that were in contention in that pole position, irregardless of the final gaps that came in to finally steal that qualifying session. That's one of the most exciting qualifying sessions that we've had in a minute.
Absolutely, indeed. At the end of our session here, we had 8 drivers all within 5/10 of each other, all competing for a potential pole position here. So it's going to be an absolutely stonking race start here. But looking at our standings, we actually see 5 McLarens in the top 4 here. So it looks like with the long straights of the Imola track here, the McLarens are back to being the favorite cars of the track.
I do think so. I think historically this is the McLaren track of the calendar that we have, so it's no surprise to see that the McLarens are absolutely excelling at this circuit. But I do look forward to this race. The fact that we have so many drivers that are so close and a track that is so punishing to the smallest mistakes, it's really going to create an absolutely amazing race. I can't wait to see what happens. We're going to be nose to tail for this entire event, and it's going to be a matter of who makes the least mistakes once we actually finally let the green flag fly and let the lap times rip.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely a spectacle to behold, not only in the Pro and Gold class here, but also in our Silver and Am class here. And as a reminder, on our Silver pole position here, we had Label Kakakeo with a 151.1, but Horace Lopez is right behind them, less than a 10th behind at a 151.215 here. So that little Gennaro that could is absolutely giving it the best they could here. Same situation here with our Am qualifying standings here, with Elias Flynn getting a 151.3 and George Cerami right behind him with a 151.462. So I don't think any of these posters are going to be sitting comfortable knowing that they can just extend their lead away, especially with that extremely long straight that Imola is going to be providing here. So it's going to be advantage McLaren, especially on the launch.
Absolutely, but remember that McLaren, it's still susceptible to some minor issues off the start. I could see Fesvox maybe sneaking a little bit of a run, just maybe getting a good launch early on. The outside line is almost preferred through turn 1. If you're able to launch the car under braking and get to that second apex of turn 3 a little bit earlier, you can really kind of control the line through, set the car up for a little bit better for the run to turn 5, and put yourself in a good position to take the lead. And I think if we see Fesvox sneak into that lead, then we're going to be getting a really, really good battle between Damon Worm and Fesvox.
Right, starting off with our grid walk here, we have Damon Wareham sitting in a dominating pole position at a 149.197, followed up by Fesvox in that Rexy green car here, the Porsche 718. In our second row, we're going to be having Daniel Tabiter in our fellow McLaren here, joined up alongside by Tyler Van Beek in the second McLaren of our third McLaren of our grid here. In P5, we have Luke Packer, the fourth McLaren of our top 5 here, sitting at a nice, steady P5 position here, joined by our first Mercedes of Nico Lopez in P6. Right behind them is going to be the other Mercedes of Luis Alfonso here, sitting in P7, joined up by our first silver driver, silver pole sitter, Blade Wolf Kakekeo in that 142, very familiar Aston Martin V8 Vantage there. Our first our Ginetta Merchant, our super silver driver of Auras Phobos sitting up in P9, joined up alongside by our Mall Motorsport Chevrolet Camaro driver of Elias Flynn in that number 77 Chevrolet Camaro here. Up in P11, we have George Surami, the second Aston Martin V8 Vantage of our grid here in that Garage 42 liveried car here, joined up alongside by our only Audi driver of Charter in P12. Up in P13, we have our Tigam Racing driver, Vossi Tigris, in the other Porsche of the grid here, joined up by their fellow Porsche comrade of Jesper Swingley in that P14 position here. In P15, we have our first AM drivers here. It's going to be Frey Firebot. Apologies, I'm going to give our second AM drivers here. Frey Firebot in that P3 position in AM overall. In P15, sitting overall in the grid here, joined up alongside by the Mercedes of Wolfing Foxdale in P16. P17, we have our Alfred Shaw Alpine, our only Alpine of the grid here today, sitting up in P17 spot here, joined up alongside the Cabal Porsche 718 Cayman of Juan Manuel Verone in the P18 spot here. In P19, we have our only Maserati of the grid here today. Sadly, we're not going to be seeing Philip Beckable driving today. It's going to be the Maserati of Sierra Thomas in P15 with that bluey car here, joined up alongside by Dan Moore in P20. In P21, we have our Australian driver, another Aston Martin. It's going to be P21 of Luna Taylor. I think that's going to be their first time on our grid here, on our series here today. Joined up by Adam Norton in that 21 Autosport delivered car in P22. Joined up on the last one, it's going to be the car of Nicolas Zahn here, who I believe was not able to set a single valid qualifying lap. So that's going to be quite a charge from them from the back of the grid to try and contend with the other gold drivers further ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting event as we roll out here. Damon Warham, almost predictably, I want to say, leading away the grid, but I don't want to discredit what we had in qualifying and the fact that all of our drivers at any point were putting on deltas that looks like they could have taken that pole position away from the 765. So it's going to be really interesting, and I'm really hoping that we can see maybe the 86 sneak their way in front. Fesvox, very, very experienced, I mean, quite literally the most experienced, as they have helped start this fantastic league that we have here. Well, they're going to be running that Porsche all the ways down into turn 1, trying to make that outside move work on that 765. And really, if you're the 86, all I'm thinking is at any cost, at least unsettle the 765's run. Do everything you can to just make sure that in that opening run, you can kind of position their car where you want it to be, because at the end of the day, Damon Worm is going to be watching their mirrors. They are going to be specifically worried about that run to turn 1, and you can almost use that against the McLaren driver and use that to position their car where you want to, get a better run out, and open up an opportunity that may not have been traditionally been there if you just let them kind of relax a little bit more.
It's going to be, especially a very good interesting qualifying session here. We're now watching on board with Luke Packer in that 286 Cabal Sports car here. We're now going down into that Aqua Minerale corner complex here, and you can hear from the onboard, they're just riding on those brakes, trying to generate temperatures into their tires as much as possible here, because with a fairly slow outlap and how long of a track is going to be, there's going to be very, very cold tires on that first lap here, so it's going to be them just trying to get as much temperature in as they can so they can get the good possible first lap here, but it might also just catch some of our drivers off guard here with how low grip they're going to be having on this first lap.
It could be the longer outlap almost is helpful though, because you have more time to drag those brakes. The heat does radiate from the brake drums directly into the carcass of the tires, which does translate ever so slightly into the surface temperatures of the tires, but the braking into turn 1, turn 2, that still is quite crucial. It is going to be a little bit lower grip because it's going to be the first time that the surface temps of those tires are going to be stressed quite a bit. And it's going to really prove who has set up these tires the best and who is able to lean on them with the most confidence. It'll be very, very interesting as we head through. And really, once you enter that braking zone for turn 1, all you have to do to look ahead is that gravel trap. So you need to make sure you're not diving in too deep, but our drivers are now diving to set their cars up. Line astern, it is going to be side by side. We are going all the ways down the grid. 23 different GT4s are lining up, all with the same goal to take home the P1 prize in this race. And they're going to be watching to the top of the grid as we fall down a very, very long run down the Imola main straightaway. The start-finish line is not going to be our trigger for the green lights. It is nearly towards the end of the main straight even as our cars set up. It is going to be a very, very short run as we set up for the final 5 red lights of the night, getting the cars ready to go as we head through the final kink on the start finish straight. McLaren versus Porsche, the run to P1 is going to be green now as we get set up and green to go through the run to turn 1. Imola round 4 is good to go as we head side by side. 1, 2, 3, 4 cars deep, going all the ways into the chicane. Careful of any chaos, boys. We know how dangerous this place can be. It's the Janetta of Oraz is a little bit into the dirt there, maybe going to be hurting from the run as 3 cars then swallow up the 406 as our drivers start following line astern side by side into Villeneuve. Another back end, Oraz taking the outside line in front of the number 10, sneaking their way through the SMR with a little bit of oversteer as we head into Tosa, and the 911 of Wanvi is now under pressure from one of the McLarens in the back there. I believe that is going to be, I can't actually spot who that is right now. That's Nicholas Zahn, who's looking to make a run up the field, one of our pros that is starting in the back, as Wanvi is now put under a lot of pressure. Vossi Tigers is looking for a big run and a big off in the background there. That's Oraz Volpez. I think that's going to be a real big damper in their Silver Championship Challenge as they run down towards Aqua Minerale, dropping all the ways to P17, down about 8 positions and under pressure from another car. And they're outside here. I think that's Nicholas Zahn again, who has been making a big charge through the field. George Suarmi that's looking to pressure into the top 10 here. They're looking for some positions early on. Maybe a braking moment into the chicane of Ariante. Outside contact. Contact 2 cars side by side, and a third turned in front of the field, and everyone able to gather everything backed up, but that's surely damage from the 77 and the number 10 as there was a battle for pizza, and another car off to the side. That's Wolf and Foxdale trying to keep it out of the walls there. The Maserati sneaking through on one of the Camaros, I believe, going down into Ravazza. We're 2 wide, 3 wide as we head settling in for the end of the first lap. And I believe 2 wide, 3 cars deep there coming through Ravazza. Yes, 2 by 2 by 2 as we head through. And Alfred Shaw to the inside. That's going to be contact with the inside wall as we have more battles going up through the main straight there. Wolf and Foxdale, I think, sneaking through as well. But the number 7 surely with damage as they hit the outside wall, heading down to turn 1.
Oh my god, this is only the first lap here. There's only going to be action happening all of the ways down, up, down, left, right of the track. We're going to be watching now with the live screen. Going up into that turn 1. It's going to be challenging. That's going to be the Porsche Cayman of Jasper Swing there. Going up through the variant time world chicane here. There's going to be watching now with Charlie Van Beek. Seems like the top 5 of the cars here have not been doing any losses yet, but we're going to be having a change that because that's going to be Charlie Van Beek on the outside of West Fox's Porsche Cayman 718 here. Going to be having a good launch going up into the Piratella corner here. There's going to be a track race down there. There's going to be the cars down the time to the right behind them as well, hoping to have another look up, or having that overtake move happening on them. It's going to be Porsche, the Porsche of Fistbox, able to get away there. But we're going to be Seymour, actually, there's going to be the car of Hookback also in the back here, going wide in that Piratella of rumble strips here. I'm happy Mountain to just really keep the car on track, but we're going to see another chance. It's going to be the Daniel Tapper having a peek up on the inside. It's going to be contact. It's going to be contact between Daniel Tapper and Taliban picking up. It's going to be going, both of them just making it away just fine here. I'm lucky there's going to be no yellow flags happening all around here, but you're going to be seeing again Daniel Tapper going up again, another dive. Now it's going to be into the variant altar. It's very dangerous again here. Be careful, guys. We don't want to have any more yellow flags happening around here, but it seems like that very bold move here, having a peek up on the aqua girl, did cause Daniel Tapper in losing a position to Luke Packer.
Absolutely, and my oh my, I needed a breather there after that lap 1 setup, and well, look at all this McLaren infighting. You'd hate to be Zach Brown if you were running in this McLaren GT4 squad. We know how harmonious that they have been in F1. Well, it looks like there is no love lost as we head into GT4. Daniel Tabiter now at that 83, looking like they're going to be putting on a challenge to run into turn 2 as we set up on Tyler Van Beek. We saw that contact come in earlier, actually Luke Packer is under pressure from Daniel Tapner, running into turn 2, looking to the inside, not close enough to make a move, but Luke Packer's a little bit deep and scaring them off into the gravel trap. They're going to be coming back down to the right-hand side. Daniel Tapner sneaking their way back through, and then sight set back ahead to Tyler Van Beek, but then Elias Flynn going slowly on the racing line, possibly an issue with their car. It looks like there might have been contact or something as well. I believe Nicholas Zahn is looking like they had an incident as well on that main straightaway, so possible contact between the 77 and the 46 as Luis Alfonso now diving to the inside. The 57 looking for a move on the 286, so Luke Packer now under immense pressure as we run up to Piratella, but looking like a better run. The 57 unable to get the drive that the McLaren has as we roll through Piratella, and Inigo Lopez also looking like they're going to be licking their lips with that Mercedes, the 423, trying to sneak a move on as we head in to Aqua Minerale. We are going to be following on board, seeing the driver's eye view of any movements, and it looks like a little bit wide from Luke Packer, so that's going to be a moment for Luis Alfonso to try to sneak their way through. They have the inside line heading in the Variante Alta, but committed on the brakes will get you this position, and it looks like they're very deep in the Variante Alta. Are you able to get the exit? And yes, it looks like Luis Alfonso able to drive the car out. Luke Packer down another position. The momentum is not swinging the right direction for the 286, who's now trapped between two Mercedes who are ever so hungry to take another position in the 286, possibly. I'd have to think that those tires just aren't fired up yet as we head on to lap 3. It's not enough time to get energy in if they have been unprepared, but it looks like they're just struggling for lap time as Damon Worm sets the fastest lap of the race at a 150.4. Oh my.
Yes, talking about somebody who has not been struck there, don't we? That's going to be the car of Damon Wareham here, only feeling a 2.0 second gap here. Now we're back to a look back here, again having another peek up on the outside of Luis Alfonso here, going up into that round, the top of the chicane confidence here. It's going to be Luis Alfonso still holding on to the lead here, but they seem to be a little bit awkward going up on that final chicane here. So it's going to be Luke Packer riding up on the rear bumper of that Mercedes here. They're going to be going side by side into the next corner compass. They're going to be going to the round over here, but they're going to be packing up from the end here. So Luke Packer seems to be getting their tires fired up here again, having a bit of a peek here. We also see in the back, I think it's going to be the car of Bossy Dickus. I'm not quite sure who was there in the background also having a fight there. Yes, it's going to be Bossy Dickus in the rear of Dickus, actually hoping to catch up onto their fellow pro and gold drivers up ahead. It's going to be now down up into the Piratella corner here. I don't think there's going to be enough of a gap here to Bossy to make a move here, but they're getting closer. The gaps have been shrinking out lap by lap here, with so it's going to be interesting if you're going to be having another look into the Aqua Minerale corner here. But we know that Blake is going to be a very strong defender, very experienced and very seasoned. It's going to be almost contact with the Porsche and the Aston Martin here, going up into the exit of that Aqua Minerale corner here. But everybody's made it fine here, and Bossy Dickus again getting even closer, now heading up into that Variante Alta chicane complex here. They're not having a peak here at the moment here, but they are just biding their time, waiting for the opportunity. Again, it's going to be a bit awkward from that front huge sausage curbs on that Variante Alta chicane here. That's going to be again getting even closer to that rear bumper, and there's going to be no draft from the cars in front for Paliku'i Kakagio. There's going to be down into that Rivazza 2, Rivazza 1 complex here. See if Bossy can take that with a bit of a grass out there coming up on the front there, but everyone's fought. Yeah, now it's going to be Bossy even closer, 3/10 behind front. Blake going up into that main straight here, but it's going to be advantage as the Martin now with the immense power and speed of that V8 advantage, that British machinery, compared to the agility and the lack of power on the Porsche 718 Cayman here. So this looks like just from that, even sitting right behind them, like 2/10 apart here, they are just able to pull that gap away on the main straight. We're going to be like having another fight now. It's going to be with Elias Flynn, the two Chevrolet Camaros going side by side with that. I think it's going to be the Porsche of Juan Manuel Alvaro right in front of it. It's going to be Elias Flynn soon right on by here, but I don't think Charter is going to be taking up the seas here. They're almost going to be going touching bumper to bumper, going up into that variant top parallel chicane corner complex here. It seems like Elias was able to just get ahead from Adam Norhelim and get up ahead, and that's going to be quite a few positions if we're going to be challenging Free Firebot and Surami. Actually, what happened to Frey? What happened to Flynn? I know Elias was at the very front at the start of the race. I'm quite curious to see what happened at the end of the race there.
Yeah, we saw the possible incident coming in for Elias that had, I think it was contact with Nicholas Zahn. I saw incident responsibility, or an incident between the two of them. I don't want to say responsibility for any of them, as we didn't really see what happened, but we did see some kind of moment that sent Elias Flynn down several positions, down 7 positions actually from their starting position. So definitely some kind of moment, something that happened to bring that car back to the back of the grid. But also looking in front and around them, they have Adam Norhelim, which is up 4 positions in that Camaro directly behind them as well, and Juan Verón, who's actually sitting in that Porsche directly in front. They're up 1 position. Looking around the grid as well, Vossi Tigris up 4 positions, Frey Fireblood up 5 positions, Nicholas Zahn up 10 positions from the back of the grid. So our pro, the number 46, is looking for some kind of run, but there is a run from this Camaro, putting on the pressure to the 911, looking to the inside of turn 16. That's going to turn into the outside for the braking zone of Ravazza 1. Juan Verón is not able to get committed, but it's going to be Elias very deep under the brakes and possibly even contact with the wall. Very, very deep as that Camaro got extremely unsettled on the brakes for Ravazza 1, and that's the danger of that little kink to the right-hand side. If you're not set up, the car just jinks to the right-hand side. Very, very hard, very easy to unsettle the car, but Luke Packer is now trying to jink their way past the Mercedes. They're trying to return themselves back to the front of the pack here as Luis Alfonso is under immense pressure. That Mercedes struggling quite a bit on the straight line of this track. They're down about 10 kph on the McLarens around them, so they need to just get that run out. Otherwise, they are under serious threat of losing that position once they head to the main straight. And while the threat is gone for the 911 of Juan Verón, who is managed to, well, actually, no, there's a little bit of a threat now because they're off on Villeneuve chicane. Possible opening in the Tosa as a Maserati sneaks to the inside there, and it looks like that's going to be Sierra Thomas who sneaks their way through, and a big slide from the Maserati, and it's going to be that position immediately lost as now the Camaro's able to sneak through as well. That's Elias Flynn, who's now looking to make a challenge again, who's stuck their way back up into the rear bumper of Juan V, who's now taking a lot of curb two-wheeling through Piratella and under serious threat to lose this position here through Aqua Minerale. Car tipped all the way over to the exit curb here, and that Camaro is just sniffing the rear wing of that Porsche. It doesn't have the power to get to the run through Variante Alta. Looks like Elias thinks it might, looking for a peak, and it looks like it could just be that mind game that we have set up for several times before. That Porsche looking like it's even better for the run out of Variante Alta, setting the car up. But this is where we saw the drama last time. Is it going to be clean this time? Hard on the brakes for Ravazza 1. It looks like there is no move on as Sierra Thomas closes that gap, but I think this Maserati has some serious pace inside of it. It's just a matter of keeping the car in line as you see the little fidgets and twitches that this 42 wants the Maserati. Of course, characteristically a huge handful, but 1B now has their handful of trying to defend against the Chevrolet. And is it going to be possible? No, I think that 911 is losing out as we head into turn 2, hard on the brakes, and that is going to be down. It looks like even into the inside. The 911 having to take a base of action as Sierra Thomas sneaks their way through and taking advantage of that move that Elias Flynn sent on the 911, and now it's going to be a charge up to the front of the field.
I am not quite sure if Sierra meant to do that move right there. That seemed to be quite accidental with just how late on the brakes they were. We're not going to be watching all board with Free Fire, but here chasing down the Janneta G55 of Aura's Wolves here, who did lose out quite a lot here. We also see the Nicolas Zon here right in the background here, having a little peek up on the rear bumper, going up into the Aqua Minerale corner complex here. It's going to be a better exit from the McLaren 570S here, the final McLaren 570S over our grid here, with everybody else here, so all the way up in the front of the grid here. We're going to be having another peek up into that tricky variant of the corner complex here. Seems like it's not quite making that move happen yet, but you can see how more unsettled Frey was going up through the big sausage curves here. Now it's going to be the McLaren inching closer and closer, gap shrinking by the second, by the minute, going up now into the Rivazza 1 corner, then through to into Rivazza 2. This is going to be Nicolas Zon's best chance to have a move done here. It's going to be a tiny tap on the brakes here, going up around that final corner here, unleashing the power of the McLaren. It's going to be actually Free Fire, but conceding the position and giving the position over to Nicolas Zon, because they are in separate classes. This is not going to be Frey's part, and with George Sarami only a couple of tenths ahead here, I think that's going to be what Frey is focusing on and not on the pro car.
Absolutely, it's a good chance to get a class win here from Fairy Fireblood, and it looks like they are going to be taking the opportunity to let someone else make that charge through. As Nicolas Zon has really just shown the pace for the back end of this field, and they have charged all the ways up to P12 from P23, but Tyler Van Beek is on a charge not for position, but to keep themselves in position, as Daniel Taberner now really putting the pressure on, as the Porsche is under threat now. The Fez Fox actually starting to get a little bit of pressure coming in from the McLarens behind. Really starting to see a little bit of twitching and shoving from these drivers as they really try to eke the final bit out of these cars. But those McLarens look so strong in the first 15 minutes of this race, and maybe that Porsche is struggling a little bit more, having to use a little more of its tire, as it's not as strong on the straightaways and needing to just really rely on that mid-corner grip. Well, it needs that mid-corner grip now because the 86 under pressure from the 84 as we run to Rivazza, and this Porsche is under serious threat as we head onto the main straight. We talked about how strong those McLarens are. It's about 10 kilometers an hour faster, but then we have a move for George Schwami in the back, the 406, whereas Volpez sneaking their way through into P10 there, but that's going to open the door. Nicolas Zon behind is going to be looking to feast off of this move, but more importantly, Frey Fireblood looking for the class win behind them is also going to be looking for some kind of move as we head into the Rivazza section. You can see the Aston Martin getting a little bit sideways as the P10 or the number 10 tries to hold on to the braking as they chase down P10 and a little bit wide. That's going to open the door for the McLaren. We know how strong it is in the straight, and that's going to put the class battle immediately on track for position in AM class. That blue Aston Martin in the foreground chasing down that black with the orange trim Aston Martin. That is your AM class battle for the lead here, and that is direct for position. Whoever takes this position here will win that AM class battle for now, but it's just a matter of who can walk away with it. Can George Rami actually hang on to the back of Nicolas Zon here, maybe let them pull away, or are they going to be caught by Frey Fireblood, and are we going to have an explosive battle here coming from the two Aston Martins?
5 different cars here and 3 different classes, all fighting for a position, all trying to just wrestle around each other, trying to get their position, trying to get their bounce down here. We are going to be seeing now George Robbie under threat from Frey Fireblood going up into that Tosa hairpin here. It's going to be advantage for the Aston Martin here, going up down into that long straight into that turn 8 towards turn 9 Piratelli corner here. It's going to be Frey Fireblood trying to get into their rears here, trying to juke out George Robbie, trying to get there on here. You can see Frey Fireblood trying to have a peek up on the inside there. Maybe a bit of a half-hearted move here going up into Piratelli. We can see Jesper Smithy in the bracket also going wide over to that rumble strips here, also trying to get around both these AM drivers here to get into their fight with Horace Mobus and Dave Kakagio up ahead here. It's going to be no position change yet. Both of them going all the ways out to the edge of that exit curb on the Akmenorali corner here. It's going to be a Frey having another peek up into the side here, but not a move. Actually, it's going to be a move. It's going to be a dive. It's going to be contact with these two cars going up into the other corner. It's going to be Frey Fireblood having a big moment there, losing out with now Jesper Smithy going past both of these cars here, so that very brave move, but did not quite work on the here. It's going to be now Frey Fireblood losing position. George Rami also losing a position, but they're going to be going up right into the rear bumper. It's going to be Frey Fireblood with another peek into the inside of that Rivazza 1 corner. It's going to another one going up into Rivazza 2. It's going to be almost side by side going down into the main straight here. So these two are not, with no gloves off, they are not giving any inch or quarter.
Absolutely no love lost as we have the 86 off. That was the P2 Porsche of Festbox. It's off in turn 1, on actually turn 2, as we see traffic going by, and that's going to be a retirement from the 86. So a big moment for our overall podium battle as Freddy Fireblood is now continuing to try to put the pressure on for that AM class win. But a moment between Festbox is actually been taken out. I wonder if there's a possible incident coming in from Tyler Van Beek and Daniel Tavener that maybe might have caused that, because they were line astern, sitting about a second away, but a big slide from the number 10. So Frey Fireblood may be licking their lips, because we've seen a couple very big dives coming in from the 26. Are they going to make some kind of dive here? Puratello, next braking opportunity. It's not a very big one, so are they going to be able to sneak their way past, setting the car up through 8 into 9? Not enough of a braking zone, but I don't know if there's enough. So line astern through Aqua Minerale as we head down, and we're going to take a quick look back at the incident. This was Fezfox as we head into turn 1 and then set the car up for turn 2. It looks side by side in the background there as we get set up. Fezfox might be under threat as we're almost looking to go 3 wide underneath the brakes, and a little bit of a touch coming from Daniel Tavener. That's going to send the 86 deep as they were then side by side for the battle for the lead. So that's going to be a very contentious incident for the stewards to take a look at. I am sure that there's going to be lots of love lost there, because that set the 86 out of that podium position battle, and that really, that was the retirement for their race.
That poor Porsche, but we're going to be watching even more action happening between Daniel Tavener and Luis Alfonso and Luke Packer here, all fighting side by side. Now it's going to be Luis Alfonso and Luke Packer going side by side through the Variant Tampero chicanes here. That's going to be down Tavener actually having a peak also on the outside of that turn 4 corner here. That's going to be unleashing the power of those McLarens here. This poor Mercedes, bullied by these two McLarens, now going up into the Variante Villanueva chicane complex here. It's again trying to get as much extra speed. It's going to be Daniel Tavener on the gravel. They're losing a lot of speed and losing the opportunity to have a say, but it's going to be now Luis Alfonso going up a deep dive into the Tosa hairpin here. It's going to be now Luis Alfonso and Luke Pepper going side by side up the hill through turn 8, through to turn 9, with Luis Alfonso still up on the inside. They are not giving up this Jeep here. That's almost bumpers touching, but it's going to be the straight line speed of that McLaren here, helping us stay ahead, but it's going to be an inside line for Luis Alfonso, now going up wide into the Puratello chicane here, with now also Daniel Tavener right behind it. It's going to be very dangerous going up into the Aqua Mineral corner complex here. Be careful, guys. Let's having no incidents here. They seem to have made it through just in one piece. It's going to be Luis Alfonso, a move on the outside. Now it's going to be Luke Packer up on the outside, going up into the Variante Alta chicane complex here. It's going to be Luis Alfonso probably diving deep into those brakes. They're trying to hold on to their position. It's going to be going again side by side with Luke Packer shoving their way through, bullying Luke Packer past to get into that position. But that's going to be Daniel Tavener. Now they're just all swapping positions back and forth, and there's no clear dominant winner here.
No, not at all. As we've seen that outside move on Variante Alta, looks like that preferred position, but Daniel Tavener now putting the pressure onto the back of Luke Packer, and it looks like Luis Alfonso is going to have to fight their way back through the McLarens here, because they were on that charge. They were able to take that P3 position momentarily, but weren't able to keep it. And all in the meantime of all of this, Tyler Van Beek has opened up a 6-second gap to these 3 cars here, who we just saw 2 laps ago was directly in the battle with these cars. So it's going to be a battle for the podium position, and every single one of our drivers here is going to be doing every single thing that they can to close this gap. As you see, the McLarens are going hard, hammers the door all the way through each of these chicanes, the teeth grinning and gritting as they try to close up, and Daniel Tavener looking for some kind of opportunity all the way up to the rear bumper of the 286. So as we're going to run out of Tosa, a possible opportunity, I don't think so, as we sit about 2 car lengths back, but these McLarens are going to be leaving nothing on the table. We've seen the physicality of this track, these cars, and what they can get away with as we head down into Aqua Minerale. It's a good chance for some kind of move, maybe closing up. We've seen a lot of sketchy runs that might open up the door, and that's going to possibly be here, because Daniel Tavener had a better exit, really closed up that gap, but I think just a little bit too far thinking about it, but staying a little bit further back just to stay outside of Luke Tavener's or Luke Packer's wingers, making sure that they can see them, but Daniel Tavener not able to make some kind of move as we head down to Ravazza. And finally, after about 20 2 minutes. I think everything started to calm down as we opened that pit window.
Yeah, pit window open and a chance for us to also finally catch our breath here, because I don't think we had a single moment of calm throughout the first half of our race here. We're already almost halfway through our race here with only 37 minutes left to go here and the pit window open here. But these three cars here are absolutely not giving up yet. None of them are giving up a single inch, a single quarter for the cars ahead here. You can see Daniel Tabner trying to get closer into the car of Luke Packer here. It's going to be two McLarens here. They're going to be equal power, equal machinery, so they're not going to be as much of an advantage for them to catch up to as they had with Luis Alfonso's Mercedes AMG here. But it seems like Daniel Tabner is able to inch themselves closer bit by bit by bit. The slipstream does help a little bit here, going down into the straight here towards the Variant Table chicane here. They are having a bit of a peak here, going up into the tight turn 6 corner here, but Luke Packer had a better exit going up into that toaster hairpin here. And then just hard on the brakes, trying to get as close to that inside apex as possible here. With again, it seems like Luke Packer gets a slightly better exit off these all corners here. So it looks like with corner and corner, they're just gaining those tenths little by little. So I think at this point, it might be better for Luke Packer or Dan Tapper to just go into the pit lane here to get out from this traffic here, because otherwise we'd just be slowed down by each other.
I would think so. I mean, that's the nice part about this pit window and the strategies that it opens up. Just a refresher for those that are unaware, it is, oh, actually, we have possibly a moment for Luis Alfonso going a little bit deep there. Surely not going to make a move off of that. It could be argued that there was some kind of advantage gain there. But for those that are uninitiated, we will be coming in for a 20-minute pit window that happens after the first 20 minutes of the race. It lasts for 20 minutes to the last 20 minutes of the race. It is closed, and you have to come in. You have the option of taking new tires, but it is not required. You're just required to put fuel in the car, and the car will be stationary for 25 seconds. If you take the tires, you sit there for a little bit longer, but you might have the option of more grip as you roll through that second half of the race. That there's the risk that you will have to warm them back up is a big moment in the background there from the 83 of Daniel Tavener. That might open up the door for Luis Alfonso, who has been closing that gap back up and maybe looking for some kind of opportunity here, because that 57 has looked almighty strong and looking like they want to take a charge onto that overall podium here. This is our overall championship leader at the moment, so a possibility to maybe come back and get a bigger opening in the point standings, because right now their closest rival is sitting in P2 with Tyler Van Beek taking that McLaren home in that podium position, and Daniel Tabener is the car directly in front of them. That is P3 in the championship, who is also putting a lot of pressure on them. So this is having massive championship implications if Luis Alfonso is stuck behind these two.
Absolutely massive implications indeed, but somebody who is not struggling at all here, that's going to be the car of Damon Wareham, now sitting 7 seconds ahead of Tyler Van Beek here. And in fact, on their last lap, they just set the fastest lap of the entire session with a 1:50.605, so less than a second off their pole time with race field, with worn tires. So Damon Wareham is absolutely not struggling at all here at the moment, and they were able to escape all the carnage over the first half of the race here. And I think at this point, there's going to be not really smooth sailing at this point, but hopefully just easing back a little bit here, managing their tires, managing their pace to make sure those tires last until the end of this nice pit window here, and hopefully it's going to be all good for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we head through, Elias Flynn looking like they're going to be trying to put on a move on Adam Norlam. So these are our two Camaros who are looking to make a charge. And Elias Flynn, who we saw leading the AM group, while they are now sitting in the AM podium, this will promote them to P2 in class if they are able to close this gap. But the 77 does need to find a way. There are other American compatriot in that Camaro, and it says equal machinery. So it's just a matter of driver skill, driver talent, and seeing who can find the moment. And actually, I think looking back up to the lead group, Luke Packer has managed to sneak their way into the pits, and they're looking like they're maybe trying to go for our challenge to get past that lead group and get back onto the overall podium. But Elias Flynn now trying to push themselves further onto the AM podium and chase down that other Camaro down into Ravazza 1. A little bit defensive from Adam Norholm as we head into 1, then set the car up for 2. Is it going to be a good enough exit? It looks like it was a little narrow from Adam, so is Elias going to be able to take that draft all the way into turn 2? It is a good possibility. It's a very, very long straight for our GT4s, and that draft is very
very, very, very strong relative to what we are used to dealing with, and it's going to be the inside for the 77 who puts their nose up and takes that preferred line hard on the brakes. It looks like Adam was a little bit later. Elias Flynn taking it to the inside, but the car is stuck to the apex, and that's going to be another lap stuck behind the 574. So the 77 really has their work cut out for them as they aren't really able to find a gap, setting the car up for Villeneuve, and maybe a moment into Tosa if we get a better exit out of Villeneuve here, but it looks like Elias was only level with the other Camaro of the 574, and I don't think there's going to be a moment. Actually, it looks like maybe a weak exit coming from the 574 is Elias now trying to sneak their way up on the run to Piratella. This is the preferred line on the inside. If you can get the car side by side and a jink to the inside, that's going to send Elias a little bit further back as they take avoiding action, but oh goodness, I don't think a single person on this track is willing to let an inch go without them fighting over it.
Everyone here is driving on their absolute limits here. You can see it from all of these cars here going left and right and almost hitting those track limits here. And somebody who is going to be on the absolute limit of the track is going to be Bossy Turkish here, trying to get up a run up on Blade Wolf Karkakio, but Blade Wolf head it into the pits here. So that's going to be finally clean air for Bossy Turkish, trying to unleash the power of that Pearl ship. But we're going to be going out to another fight. It's going to be with Daniel Tabeter and Luis Alfonso here, still going back to back here. And I feel like actually it was we had Luke Packer heading up into the pits at some point. I did see a flash of yellow flags here, so maybe they had an incident which also cost them some position here, but we might have a replay on that later on here. But it's going to be now down to Luis Alfonso and down the top here, going up through that chicane here, past Valentine Villeneuve towards the Tosa hairpin here with a gap of about a second. It seems like Luis Alfonso has the advantage so far here with the two Bluey cars here, despite them being the same team. They don't seem to be having any team orders. There are no shark orders in this team here because they have been fighting hard for the entire race here. And with almost halfway through the race here, I think at this point they may have just calmed down and decided to maybe have a temporary truce until they are back in fighting distance.
Yeah, there's a good possible chance, but yeah, Daniel Tabener, the 83, is starting to close that gap a little bit. The Mercedes really, really strong in this middle sector of the lap here, and maybe trying to open up that gap so they aren't under threat from the 83 once they head onto that main straight. And it looks like a very, very good run actually opened up that gap quite a bit. The 83 taking a lot of curb, and I mean all of it, because they took every anti-cut curb that was there. Surely a off-track warning for the 83 as we head on to the halfway point of the race as we cross the line here. So a lot of our drivers starting to take the pit stop. Our race leader actually took the pit stop on this time by as they dropped all the way down to P11. So everyone ahead of them, it is easy to assume, will have not taken their pit stop. But we haven't talked much about Damon here, who has been leading this race without any question of their authority in this event. They have opened the gap up to about 8 seconds from the last time I was able to get a peek at it to Tyler Van Beek, who has been their closest rival. But they have just absolutely walked away with this race so far, and well, still 30 minutes to go. These curbs are very dangerous, very easy to pitch the car off balance and into a wall. And so never say never, but it's just looking like there is little doubt that it could end up in Damon's hands.
Don't forget about lap traffic as well. That could also be playing some funny business to our leading cars. So they're gonna have to keep their wits about them for the entire rest of the race here. We're gonna be having another look at. We can see Adam Norhalem, also a big gainer here on the race so far here, gaining quite a few positions here, but with the pit windows still not fully closed there, with everybody not having done their scheduled pits up here. We're going to be seeing these positions shuffle out quite a lot here in the race here. We also see Nicholas Zahn here, I think, also had their pit stop just done here before here. It's going to be everybody from Damon Wareham up that have not served their pit stop here. But there's quite a lot of fighting here happening already. We also see everybody has started to spread out here, so it's going to be now down to the tire management aspect here, just trying to keep their tires in a tip-top shape here, especially when they're going to be done with their pit stop here, because I believe most of these cars are not going to be doing a tire swap here, because as a reminder, our pit stop is a mandatory 25 seconds fuel timer, but they are not required to switch for fresh tires. And I feel like with how long it takes for these cars to get to their optimum tire temperature here, and with how long it takes for like the extra 5 seconds it takes to swap out those tires, I think most of our cars are going to be deciding to stay to their old tires here to keep the temperature and then just drive them all the way to the end.
You would think so, but now our provisional not provisional race leader, but current race leader, Tyler Van Beek, comes in. This was our podium position, considered P2, I believe it was, for Tyler in the 84 is going to be coming in for their pit stop. They're going to be overtaken by Luis Alfonso and Daniel Taberner as they go flying by, having not taken their pit stop, but I believe we're going to see no question that the 84 is going to cycle back out into that P2. They had quite a big gap as Daniel Taberner taking a lot of curb. You can see that McLaren bouncing all over the shop, taking a little bit of gravel on the exit. So maybe Daniel Taberner takes some tires. It looks like they've pushed a lot of life outside of that rubber, and maybe it's just not hanging on like they wanted it to, as they now look to make a move on the lap traffic. Charter is going to be abiding, letting them take that racing line as soon as they dove to the inside and continue their challenge up to Luis Alfonso. But that gap's opened up to quite a bit. 2 seconds is going to be quite a large gap to close up. Wolf and Foxter diving to the pits there in front of our provisional race leader, Damon Warren, who has continued to really put the pace on and really open up the throttle, the lap time, everything you could ask for from the 765.
Absolutely, indeed. They have not had any struggles at all throughout this race here. And they were actually quite lucky with how everybody behind them, from P2s all the way down to P6, got stuck fighting between them. So the more they get stuck fighting, the more time they lose on the track here. Whereas Damon Brown could just say, thank you very much, I'm just going to be driving off into the horizon. But with about 26 minutes of the race to go here, it still could be anyone's win here. We're going to be now watching Tyler Van Beek also having just finished their pit stop here. And that's going to be now only Daniel Taberner and Luis Alfonso, who have not done their own scheduled pit stop at the moment here. So we're going to be watching very closely to see if they're going to be still ahead or behind this pack here, especially if they have not opted to switch out their tires here. So this could be shuffling our pack here quite a lot here. But at the moment, with nobody really ahead or behind you, you're just kind of doing your own lap time here. Like, it's going to be a challenge perhaps for our cars to stay focused here. But somebody who's going to be absolutely focused, it's going to be the car of Auroras Wolpes, now caught up to the back of Leitl Kalmari, who's still going to be ahead of them, going down now into the Variante Villeneuve again here, heading up into that tight Tosa here. But that tight left-hander here, it seems like the Ginetta of Auroras Wolpes is getting ever so closer. We also see the car of Vossi Tigris right ahead of them as well, giving a bit of a tow to Blade Wolves. Aston Martin, but we also see behind it's going to be just as swiftly going up side by side with Niklas Zahn here. I think Niklas Zahn actually had just passed the silver driver Porsche Cayman car here, and they are not probably going to be challenging too much for the cars ahead. But at a scenario where you're not really fighting anybody directly, you're just sitting many seconds behind here, waiting for these pit stop windows here. It's going to be a bit of a challenge to keep your focus here, to get those lap times right here, so you can get the maximum advantage and hopefully stay ahead once the pit stop cycle completes.
Absolutely. And well, look at that traffic jam that we have in front of the group. Well, we have about everyone has served their pit stop, only missing Daniel Taberner, Juan Verone, who have not come and served their pit stop. So these are all battles for position as we look through the grid, and Nicolas Zahn looking to actually charge back through. That's that McLaren right in front of our Porsche that is in the middle of our picture here. So possible moves from the 46 there, looking to charge onto the back of Auroras Wolpes and Bladewolf Kagakio, who are fighting for P1 overall P1 in class for that silver championship and that silver race win here, because that Ginetta, we know how weak it is in the straightaways. It's going to be a question of if they can make it happen in the corners, as Tyler Van Beek has been jumped by Luis Alfonso, who snuck their way onto the nose of the 84. So we head into Tosa, and now that McLaren is going to be antsy because we saw Tyler open up quite a gap. So Luis Alfonso has done an extremely good job to sneak their way back onto the front of the group here. But is it going to be a matter of time, or is Luis Alfonso going to be able to stretch their legs and get away from the 84 McLaren as they head down into Aqua Minerale? This is where the Mercedes has really proved to be very strong as we head in, and it looks like a little bit of jinking and juking, and cars trying to find their position on track. But look at that gap that Mercedes opens up through the Aqua Minerale section. Not particularly a bad section for Tyler Van Beek, but Luis Alfonso did a very, very good job of getting a good exit as we headed into the Variante Alta section. It looks like the Mercedes just a little more compliant on those curbs as well, so that might open up enough of a gap for the 84 to not be able to close up. But I struggle to see why, where Lewis will not have to defend there, but Ores Volpe is now looking for some kind of move or some kind of defense from Nicholas Zahn. It really is the tough position of these multi-classes and being stuck fighting in your own championship, because right in front of them, Ores Volpe has the possible class win in front of them, but behind them, they have Nicholas Zahn in one of the fastest cars on the track, trying to put pressure onto their rear wing and open it up as a little bit of dirt, and a car spun on the exit curbing there. I'm not sure who that is. It's Adam Norlim in the 574, who we saw battling earlier with Elias Flynn, is going to be spun around on that exit curb, and so a big drop of positions from our M-class leader, who is now diving into the pits. But Tyler Van Beek, as we go 1, 2, maybe even 3 wide into the Villeneuve chicane, the 84 looking for the outside line is able to sneak it through, but Luis Alfonso taking to the apex and contact is no. Tyler Van Beeks goes off, and then on the outside, setting up for Tosa. It looks like Luke Packer might be able to get their way through, as Luis Alfonso has to go defensive again, is squeezing the Mercedes all the way to the edge of the track, trying to find some kind of release to get these McLarens, keep them behind, but Tyler Van Beek is not going to be letting up. Luke Packer is going to be shoving it up the inside of Piratella, but the Mercedes is able to sneak through and hold on to the position once again for its strongest section.
Yeah, these cars are, again, after the pit stop cycle, all of them are still separated by less than a second by each other. We're going to be seeing another dive from Tyler Van Beek going up into the dangerous Aqua Minerale sector here, going up almost to the rear bumper of Luis Alfonso, now going up into that long straight towards Variante Alder chicane here. It's going to be Luke Packer, Tyler Van Beek, apologies, going up all over the rear wing mirrors of Luke Packer right here, trying to get around there, trying to get past their Phil McLaren dropping here. It's going to be incredible. We're going to be also seeing Danny Taberner now in the pits here. So once they're going to be done with their pit cycle here, there's going to be potentially another car joining this battle for the top spots in our Go Championship fight here. With going on into the Rivazza 1, Rivazza 2 corners, it seems like Luis Alfonso is taking a lot of advantage of this fighting between the two McLarens here. Again, opening up that gap to 1.3 seconds. I'm going to be watching now Danny Taberner, see if they're going to be ahead or behind this pack. It's going to be the most interesting part of the fight here. It also looks like Tyler Van Beek was not able to get the best possible exit going out of that Rivazza 2 corner here, losing a lot of time. Actually, you got to see Danny Taberner going behind all of these cars here. So despite Danny Taberner, I think they were a little bit closer to this back here before the pit stop cycle, but after that there's going to be even further back, sifting several seconds behind here, but there's going to be a much closer gap for Luke Packer, now again caught up to the rear bumper of Luis Alfonso with Tyler Van Beek right behind them as well. So with that shove going up into the outside of the Variante Villeneuve chicane, they're going to be very displeased about that. They're going to be fighting even harder to try and get around, reclaim their position here. And in fact, you can see Luke Packer having a bit of understeer going up into the Variante Villeneuve chicane here, with giving a chance for Tyler Van Beek to get even closer on the Tosa hairpin. We also see lap traffic. I think that's going to be the I think that's Dan Moore's car, Aston Martin right ahead, and it's going to be also playing some silly games. We're going to be going into the very fast section here, going up into the Piratella corner here with Dan Moore, the poor Aston Martin right ahead of him, just desperate to try and get out of the way here, but there's really nowhere to go here because they're going to be going up into Aqua Minerale where there's literally only one lane to go here. So it's going to be Dan Moore braking hard, braking slow, trying not to get in the way here, but it's going to be almost going off into the grass here, trying to avoid having contact with the two gold McLarens here. Good thing they avoided contact here, but you can see the lap traffic can cause havoc at any moment.
Yeah, and there's nothing you can really do about it. I mean, as a lap car, you can't just jump out of the way in some of these sections. So Daniel Howard did the best job that they could to try to not impede the lead battle. So a very valiant effort from them to get out of the way. But you can see the gap that opened up, just a little bit of uncertainty through that Aqua Minerale section has really opened up the gap to about 2 seconds now for between these Mercedes and McLarens that have been fighting all lap, all race, all night even. As we also look back, Daniel Taverner, I think maybe possible damage repair when they came into the pits. There was so much beating and banging, and I think Daniel Taverner really was taking the worst of it. We saw them have the contact with Fez Fox, a bunch of door banging with Tyler Van Beek, as Tyler Van Beek's looking to put a move onto Luke Packer directly in front of them. So a good chance that they have now the fresh car, and while they have to close a 3-second gap in the next 20 minutes here, I think they'll have the best car after we've seen even more beating and banging from Tyler Van Beek, from Luke Packer, and Luis Alfonso. So all three of these cars that are under threat from Daniel Taverner behind, well, they could be looking at some kind of damage, some kind of little thing that is just hurting the car a tiny bit, destroying the performance, maybe chewing the tire a little bit more, or maybe even the worst case, you get some graining on an axle that sets the car back and really damages its pace. Well, it's just a matter of time. He's still got 19 minutes left to go as where Lopez is trying to use every single second of it to try to sneak back past and get this P1 in class. But that Aston Martin is absolutely relentless on the straights. It's going to be proving to be a almost David versus Goliath battle, something Orez is very used to this season, to try to sneak their way past the Aston Martin in front.
Ginetta had a really big advantage in our bother space here with the technical skyline section, here, but there's no such advantage here for the Ginetta in these long straights, in these long chicanes in Imola here, but they are not caring about that a single bit. You can see they're just diving as fast as possible into Aquaminaro already, into Variante Alta, into Rivazza, into all these corners here. We're going to be watching now with Jesper Swingley as we see the Ginetta of ours, we are actually having a peek up onto the chicane into Variante Alta here, trying to juke out Blade Wolf, but Blade Wolf's going to be a very experienced racer. They're not going to be deterred by those kinds of moves here, but the Ginetta of Warsaw is going to be using every single trick in their book to try and get as close as possible to their fellow Super Driver here. This is a fight for Super Master. We're going to see Carl the track. I'm not quite sure which one. I think that was the car of Luna Taylor here, just diving all the way out of the way here from this fight to not say, no, thank you, I don't want to have any of this here. But we're going to be now going through Rivazza 1, Rivazza 2. Now onto the main stretch here, going through the Variante Bassa corner here. It's going to be Orswolf is trying desperately, just wish they had a couple of more horses, a couple of more kilometers per hour in their engine to try and get closer. But you can see, despite them being glued to the rear bumper of that Aston Martin, they just have no answer to the straight line speed here. We can see the gap shrunk, increasing from 0.4 seconds to almost second, now giving Jesper Swingley a chance to have a peek up on the Ginetta here. So I think Oris Wolf is not just kicking them, so just screaming they would have a little bit more power so they could just try and challenge the Aston ahead.
Yeah, and the challenges are really everywhere to be found, because as soon as Orez loses that momentum, well, you have Jesper Swingley in the Porsche behind who's looking to put a challenge onto the back end of that 406. So it's a matter of where we can find the lap time on the track. I mean, honestly, where you can find the clean air, because look at that. Even when you are running a free air, you have lap traffic ahead of you that is going to be trying to cause all sorts of issues. So, I mean, I think this silver battle is going to go all the way to the end of the race. I really just struggle to see any way that it goes any way else, because even if Orez sneaks back in front of that 142 Aston Martin directly in front, well, they still have to walk away. And while this car is strong in the corners, we know the straight line advantage that Aston Martin has, because the Ginetta just really doesn't have the grunt, as Damon Warren sets the gruntiest fastest lap of the race, 150.042, so almost possibility that they will be matching their qualifying times by the end of this race here, with those 149s looking like they might even be in danger of being broken. So it's, well, a very dominant race from the 765, but everyone else has a little bit more of a fight on their hands, yes, it has to be said.
Yeah, it seems like the fight has switched from the gold fight to the silver fight. We're going to be now seeing Jesper Swingley glued to the rear bumper of that Ginetta, so this could be Jesper's highest chance to get a ride around the wheel. Because you see the car of Juan Manuel Verona, that's actually a lap down, going out of the way of this fight here, with the top three all fighting for position. It's going to be almost contact between the two Porsches here. Oh, a lap traffic car, careful guys, get out. Going to be Ginetta on the outside, Porsche on the inside. You're going to be seeing who's going to be the bravest going up into the brakes here. It's going to be the Ginetta not quite having the momentum they need. It's going to be Swingley going all the way through. It's going to be Swingley on the grass. It's going to be Swingley on the grass. It's going to be losing all that momentum they had just before here, with the Oris moments again going right past them, saying thank you very much for that mistake. So it's all down to those tiny little off-track moments here that Oris Phobos needs to have a chance to get past the car of, as we're going to see another off-track. I think that was going to be the car of Juan Manuel Verona there in the bracket, not going side by side with that lap traffic car here, just trying to get back up from that tiny critical mistake. Yeah, I think it's going to be down to these mistakes here that's going to be giving Oris Phobos the best possibility to get past Label Kagageo here, because I don't think they're going to be getting there on pure pace alone.
Absolutely, and actually an extremely intelligent move there from Orez Volpez, who was using the lap car to box in Jesper Swingley, who I believe they just gave them just enough space to sneak on by, but you could really see Orez kind of tracking the car to the left. They were still leaving a car's width, but unfortunately for Jesper, that there was going to be a car in front of them. And speaking of those 149s I just mentioned earlier, Damon Warren setting a 149.92, but it's a move off to the inside for Luke Packer from an off track from Luis Alfonso.
Alfonso, and this is going to be pushing the Mercedes all the way back to the McLarens. And then you see a second in the back of Tyler Van Beek, who's looking for a move as well that could benefit from this. It could be 1, 2, maybe even 3 wide as we head down the main straight. The 286 is going to be leading in front, but Lewis is going to be losing a second position as Tyler Van Beek now sneaks on through. Lewis looking for a dive back to the inside of 2 and through 1, apex to 2. Tyler able to defend a second, but no, Lewis is able to edge ahead and back down. The 84 loses out of position, but then look behind. That's Daniel Taberner. We talked about him having a clean car and able to sneak their way through. Well, now they're on the back end of this podium fight.
It's like a conga line of cars between Gold and Pro drivers here. Bumper to bumper, almost glued together. They're having a dance down the straights here. Lucky that nobody had any incident from that, but they're still going away here. That's going to be Danny Taberner going up into the rear bumper of Tyler Van Beek here. It's going to be Danny Taberner having a bit of a peak, going up into the Piratello corner here. But they're going to be backing out here. We're going to be watching very close as we're going to be going brakes, lighting up hard into that corner here, trying to extract as much pace out of that exit of the Piratello, going into that very important Aquaman Raleigh corner complex here. And that's the more they are fighting here, we're going to be seeing them diving hard into Aquaman Raleigh. Now we're going to be on board with Danny Taberner here, trying to get the best possible exit, going up the hill, now towards Varente Alta here. You can see the lights on the rear lights on that McLaren ahead of him, just lining up on the 100-meter board here, trying to get the best possible entry into the big sausages on the Varente Alta corner complex here, with Danny Taberner almost touching the anti-cut strips on the outside here and still staying up right behind them. But now it's going to be Tyler Van Beek and Luis Alfonso making up bigger gap on the car's head, so there's not going to be much of a chance for Tyler Van Beek to get a slipstream going up into the important Rivazza 1, Rivazza 2 corners here. So if Tanya can just get close enough into that corner here, dab on the brakes here, a bit understeering wide, there's going to be not good for Dan Taberner. They're actually going to be losing a bit of time there, so they're not going to have a chance to have a peak on down into turn 2 towards the Varente Temporal chicane here. But with only about 12 minutes of the race to go, we still have no idea who's going to be the gold winner here.
No, not at all. And Luis Alfonso and that Mercedes, I think, is also starting to maybe suffer from a little bit of front end where you can see the Mercedes has just gotten a little bit weaker in the front axle, turning in a little bit earlier, just trying to make their way through these corners. So Daniel Taberner and looks like Tyler Van Beek as well is going to be trying to be pushing some kind of move on, but Tyler is maybe under pressure from Daniel Taberner, who has started to file back into line. The 84 under threat from the 83, trying to sneak their way up onto the overall podium and up to P2. And this is what we talked about earlier. Luis Alfonso, the championship leader, well, their 2 biggest championship rivals are directly behind them, so they need to keep these positions. And this is where the fireworks start to fire off, and everyone is going to be stamping their authority on this championship, because every position that one of these drivers takes is going to be a massive shift in the championship standings here. And while of course 2 of them are in a different class, everyone would relish the opportunity to take that overall championship. And every single one of the drivers, they're not going to say no to taking an overall championship just because they're going to win the class championship. So I don't think these fireworks are going to end until the fireworks have signaled to end the race, because the 83 is now looking through the Variante Alta chicane. Looks like Tyler might have been able to get a little bit better exit off of the corner here, but that gap for Luis Alfonso always closes up here in that Rivazza section. The Mercedes seeming to struggle in that downhill braking zone just a little bit more, but Luke Packer is now also starting to get caught by the Mercedes of the 57, and so back to a 4-car battle for our P2 position here, and it could be another opportunity for the elbows to get out. And you actually look in the back at Inigo Lopez, only 2 seconds back as well, is also going to look to enter this battle here. So every single one of our drivers looking for a chance to stamp themselves onto the podium here. 5 cars for the top 3 positions. Only 1 has been decided, and all the ways left in the last 10 minutes of this race, anything can happen.
Yeah, we already seen Danny Taberner again in the rear bumper of Tyler Van Beek going up into the Villeneuve chicane complex here. It's going to be them just trying to extract as much space into the exit curve. It seems like Danny Taberner was not able to get as much of an exit speed going up into the corner here. They're still right in their rear bumper here, going up through the Tosa hairpin, now up the hill towards turn 8, towards turn 9. The Piratello corner here is going to be important to carry as much speed as possible through that corner to get a best possible setup for Aquaman Raleigh. Possibly, like I said, if you're feeling very, very brave here, which I feel like these drivers are going to be feeling extremely brave after seeing all the battles we have all around this race here. It's going to be down Taberner again, really close, going up into the Aqua Minerale corner compass here. There's not going to be a move there yet, but they are going to be important on that corner exit here. Hopefully not hitting on those big curves. It's going to be a bit of a bounce from Tyler Van Beek. It's going to be giving an advantage, a possibility for Daniel Taberner to have a peek going up into the variant of the chicane here. They're going to be having a show of their mirrors in the corner in the chicane here, but no move done yet here. We're going to be, again, all of them bouncing hard. It's going to be a bit of an oversteer moment from Tyler Van Beek, which is going to be giving yet another opportunity for Daniel Taberner to inch themselves closer here. This is going to be the best possibility for them yet. They are only less than a car with back from the Oliver McLaren. We're going to be now going into another fight. It's going to be between Juan Manuel Verore and Dan Mora going up into the Aquaminora corner compass here. It's going to be Juan Verore a lap down from the Arthur Phillips Super Drivers here, but they are not going to be giving up anything here. They're going to be going up now fast. It's going to be now Dan Mora now up on the inside, having a peek into the variant of the corner compass here. It's going to be a big send, but no, not a send. They're going to be backing out after that from the end. And also somebody else who has been gaining here lap by lap, it's going to be Frey Firebird and George Robbie. I've been watching these deltas very closely here, and every single lap here, it's going to be George Robbie a couple of tenths closer here. So I think with about 8 minutes to go here, I think there's going to be a last lap showdown for these two AM cars here for a potential class win.
Yeah, good chance to challenge for the class win, but we have, again, everyone's closed back up. It looks like Lewis has had a little bit of a moment. That gap opened up to about 1.6 seconds to Luke Packer directly in front, but what that's done is compressed these two McLarens back into each other because they start losing track and where they can go. You start losing some visibility. It's the rear wing of that Mercedes starts to obscure your sight lines, and then, of course, when you close all the ways up to it, of course, the car physically directly in front of you, you can't go any faster, and that opens up even more opportunities for Daniel Taberner at the back of this pack to make some kind of move directly to the front. But Luis Alfonso now starting to chase back down Luke Packer. That momentum starting to swing in their favor, closing that gap up just a tiny bit. As Daniel Taberner now running up and trying to get that gap underneath. It looks like they might have even had a slightly better run to Variante Alto. I don't think it'll be good enough to make some kind of move here, but the McLarens trying to posture themselves and really set up for the best run onto the main straightaway here. We've seen some mistakes come through, and while there might have been a mistake from Tyler Van Beek as we run down towards Ravazza here, and the McLaren of Daniel Taberner is going to be sneaking to the inside, outside of 16, inside for the braking for 17, and maybe filing their way through as we go side by side through Ravazza 1. The 84 is going to be falling behind the 83, but maybe are they going to set the car up for the exit of the Ravazza 2 section onto the main straight? We know how much the draft is worth, so was this too much too early for Daniel Taberner, or are they going to be able to make that position work as Tyler Van Beek looks to fire back and make a position back up onto Daniel Taberner, back onto this silver or gold class podium here? And no, they're unable to. So Daniel Taberner, who we talked about maybe playing the long game, maybe playing those repairs that might have been plaguing the car's performance, well, they filed their way up to P4, now P3 in their sights, and possibly even challenging for the middle position of that overall podium.
You actually saw just a flash of yellow flags here coming up from George Robbie, so all that progress they made on Frey Firebird might have been lost in a single off-track moment there. I think they may have had a bit of an issue going up into the Ravazza corners here because we saw a huge gap. The gap before this was less than 3 seconds, about 2.5 seconds, but now it's going to be down to 4.4 seconds. We're probably going to be seeing a replay of that later on in the race here, but we should be now having a quick look to see what exactly had happened. We're going to be watching, I think that's going to be the car, actually it's going to be George Robbie and Frey Firebird both together here. Actually, there was going to be a fight going down now into the Ravazza 1, Ravazza 2 corner here. We can see George Robbie in the background there having a big dive, it's going to be contact between the AM class competitors here. That was a surprise that Frey was able to get away with that, and George Robbie paid the price for that very opportunistic send.
Yeah, I almost struggle to think that's a send. I think maybe the car got unsettled there. You could see it maybe just moving a little bit side to side in the middle of the braking zone, losing some braking performance there. And by the time it came to the release, the car just wasn't able to comply and rolled massively into the back end of Frey Fireblood. So that could be putting a massive dent into the back of the M-Class leader as well as our M-Class podium here. I don't think it'll do too much in terms of the stewards as everyone got away as scot-free as you could ask, but the 83 is not letting Luis Alfonso away scot-free, who that Mercedes is now going to actually let past Daniel Taberner and put that challenge up to Luke Packer. So Luis Alfonso playing a little bit of the team game. Both of our Blue E drivers here, different cars, but same livery, same team, has now released the 83 to go as Dan Mauer's now taking a fight with, I believe, Adam Norhalum, who
is either barge their way through or is significantly under threat and trying to put their elbows out against that 260. So Den Mauer now looking like they're trying to charge a fight against the Chevrolet, and it looks like a good chance for Dan Mauer to maybe close up the gap as Adam Norhelim is struggling through the Ravazza 1 and 2 section, but firing the car out of the final corner here. Looks like the Camaro has been able to settle themselves up. And I think Dan Mauer is going to have to settle for a little bit here until another opportunity opens itself, because this gap is starting to kind of settle itself down as we run back into turn 1 here. But battles all the way through. As you look at our timing tower, we have 0.1, 0.3, 1 second gaps everywhere. Everywhere that is red is a battle that's going on now, and everywhere that is orange is a battle that could be happening very soon. And a battle that is happening now is Elias Flynn running down the Audi of Charter. That beautiful V10 screaming, but it is under massive pressure from our AM class podium finisher who sneaks their way around the outside of 1. Can they keep it on the track? Yes, they can. Keeping the car glued all over the curbs, just bouncing the car around, and they're able to sneak their way past Charter, who's just trying to get up the positions for that silver class. But Elias Flynn, our 3rd position in that AM Champ podium. That is going to be a beautiful move from the 77.
Beautiful textbook overtake all through the Variante Tambaro chicane here. It seems like they're, as soon as they got ahead of them, they're just pulling the gap even larger. The gap's already sitting at 1.1 seconds going after just a couple of corners through the Tosa hairpin here. We're going to be going back now into the fight between Dan Tabiter and Luke Packer. It seems like there was some short corners happening in play here, because now it's going to be Dan Tabiter having a challenge onto Luke Packer's car here. The gap has shrunken down even more here. I can see there's been a weak pace difference. We can see Dan Tabiter just got their personal best, a 149.9, whereas Luke Packer only got a 150.9 here. So there's a gigantic difference in pace here, and it feels like Luis Alfonso also been losing a lot of their pace as well. They were only able to get a 151 on their last lap here, which is given that opportunity for Tyler Van Peek, who is seen flashing their headlights to the Bluey Mercedes ahead of them, saying like, "Hello, I'm here. I'm going to be all over your bumper. I'm going to be overtaking you soon here." But it's now going to be down to Luis Alfonso to see if they can withstand that pressure with only 2 minutes left of the race to go here. We're going to be seeing, also you got to be a yellow flag on the car here. It's going to be Jesper Swindy going way off track. I think that's going to be, I think that was the chicane going up into, I think the Variante Alta chicane here. We lost a lot of time there, but thankfully everyone's okay. But it's going to be back into the fight here with Daniel Tabiter and Luke Packer here. Daniel Tabiter is getting even closer. It seems like the tires on that McLaren of Luke Packer ahead is really starting to pay dividends, because they are just struggling for pace. They're almost bumper to bumper going up into the Variante Alta chicane complex here with Daniel Tabiter getting an even better exit now. Going to be chasing down that Alfredo McLaren going up down to turn 16 towards turn 17 to the Rivatas here. There's going to be going side by side. It's going to be white flag now for Damon Werner here, but it's going to be close to the last laps here of the track here. There's going to be a cutback from Dan Tapper going up on the inside of Luke Packer. It's going to be going side by side through Rivata 2. It's going to be a drag. There's going to be a bit of contact with the 2 cars bumping together here. Hopefully they were able to get away nice and smooth here, but it's now going to be Dan Tapper right in that bumper, getting that slipstream with nobody ahead of Luke Packer to give them any assistance here. There's going to be a very important braking zone with only a couple of minutes left to go on the race here. We're going to be seeing if Dan Tapper is going to be making a pickup on the inside here, with Luke Packer taking a defensive posture into turn 2 here, with Dan Tapper having a peek up on the outside, but that's going to be compromised. The line for Luke Packer is going to be Dan Tapper trying to have a peek up on the outside here, which is not going to be quite enough here. That's going to be turns 2, 3, 4. Still no change in position here, with Dan Tapper still trying to get a move up done here. We got to see in the background there's going to be Luis Alfonso, Tyler Van Beek, and Enrico Lopez also having their own fight here. But we're going to be keeping our focus here on Dan Tapper here. Now going through the Variante Villeneuve corner here. Again, no change in position here, but every single corner there's going to be more chances for Luke Packer to make a mistake, going a bit too wide on a corner, hit a curb too awkwardly, or have a wheel on the grass here. We're just giving another chance for Dan Tapper to get around them, and there is still no clue who's going to be at the top here, with only 20 seconds of the race to go here, besides Damon Werner here, who has been just utterly dominant on the entire race here. We're going to be hopefully watching them soon here. But holy jeepers, I'm running out of breath here.
Yeah, absolutely. Damon Worm has been running away with this race, but Daniel Tabiter is trying to run back up to the rear end of Luke Packer, who's been defensive for the entirety of the first half of this final lap here, trying to set the car up into Variante Alta and maybe set up for a defensive posture, but it looks like they're going to take that door open approach as Daniel Tabiter really sets up for the final run. Damon Warham has taken the final run out of the final corner and is going to be swinging through for the win in the overall positions, but we don't know who's going to win in gold yet as we head down in Rivata 1, and it's going to be a defensive position from Luke Packer, maybe even a little bit deep. Daniel Taverner looking for the inside, and a big slide from the 83, almost spinning the car around as one of the lap cars takes the outside ground to let everyone through as P2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 all file through. 1 second gap between each of them or less as we file through. Luke Packer taking the win, Daniel Taverner in P2, Luis Alfonso P2 in the platinum standing, and Tyler Van Beek P3 in the gold. But we look through in the silver, and looking like a move from Mars Vapaz in the 406, contact with the Aston Martin 142 played with Kakakio, and drama all the way to the end in multiple classes here as Blade Wolf is going to be able to sneak their way through, or as unable to make a slide through in the final braking zone of the race. But looking back, Freight Fireblood now under threat from George Chuarmi. Kavas will move deep into the outside brakes.
Oh my god, there's just last lap sense in Rivazza, in gold, in silver, in Ab, all of them just making last lap desperation moves, but it's gonna be now Frey Firebird just barely squeezing ahead of George Rami here with just so many cars here. It happened with Daniel, it happened with Lopez, it happened with Sarabi. All of the P2 runners here just making last minute sense into Rivazza here, and all of them just costing so dearly. And good job on these leader cars here to be able to keep their cars. I'm actually running out of brain power here with just how crazy those last two. We see all the same exact move, the same exact mistake done 3 times in a row in 3 different classes. We're now going to be watching Charter being one of the last cars to cross the finish line here on an incredibly crazy finale to this crazy race.
Oh my goodness, what a barn burner of a race. Well done, Imola, I have to say. My voice is struggling through because I don't think I've had to be that vocal, that loud for a full hour-long race. We typically get a break, but there was none in that entire event. Every single way we looked, there was always something going on. And what a well-deserved race, a win for all of our winners, all of our podium finishers, every single class, minus Damon running away with the overall win. Every single person you could ask for was having a battle to the end of the race. Frey Fireblood sneaking their way into P1 in that AM class. George Suarmi, who we saw go for the very audacious dive at the end of the race, finishes in P2, and Elias Flynn down in P3 for that AM class. We saw a very, very strong challenge between them. In silver class, it was no different. We saw the challenge from Blaywolf Kakakio. The 142 had a huge dive sent on them from Juarez Volpez, that Janetta struggling to get past. Well, Wolf was able to absorb that pressure and take it home, as well as Jesper Swingley, who was able to finish in P3 in class, and then back into our gold podium. Of course, Luke Packer in the 286 was able to steal that gold P1, but they were chased down by Daniel Taverner and Tyler Van Beek, who, wow, I mean, Luke Packer was one of our pros, but that you wouldn't know. Daniel Taverner taking the class win in gold. Tyler Van Beek followed up by Nico Lopez. Very, very insane race. I'm forgetting our own classes because it's been so crazy, and every single one of those drivers looked like they were already in their own class and perfectly fought out between each other. What an insane event from everyone.
You can just see how close the gaps are between our pro and gold drivers here. Some of us are even fighting for the race wins here, as we saw for a brief moment at the start of the race here. But that's going to be finally bringing a conclusion to our race here in Imola. And next week around, it's going to be a classic British track this time around. It's going to be Oulton Park for our 5th round of our Simufur GT4 Season 4 Championship. And if we saw anything like this in Imola, if we're going to be seeing this kind of tough fighting in an even tighter, even narrower track in Oulton Park here, I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be yellow flags and full course yellows happening.
Yeah, it's been an amazing season. The GT4 is really proving that they know how to put on a challenge, making these hard to pass tracks really show a class of their own. And wow, a classic British track. It makes me really look forward to what these cars are going to bring. Oulton Park is just as hard to pass as Imola, and I think are on it for another insane barn burner of a track as we roll out next week.
Yes, this has been an incredibly wonderful race to commentate for all of our drivers here, and thank you again, everybody, for joining on this stream here, and hopefully we're going to be seeing you again next week for the Oulton Park round, and also for the finale in Zolder 2 weeks' time here. But for now, I want to be saying a big thank you from me, from Jordan Johnson, and from Paliku'i Grant here, behind the cameras here, making sure we watched all the amazing action live here on the stream. So, I don't have anything else left to say. I think we just all need to have a big breather, a sip of water, maybe a puff of oxygen here with how we almost ran out of breath at the end here. But that's going to be it from all of us here. Thank you again, everybody. See you all next week, and have a good night.
Yeah, thank you very much. What an insane race. I can't wait to bring us again to Alton Park. Thank you again from Simufur GT4 Season 4. And well, all I can say is good night.